everyone, and welcome back to Liz Sews. I've done a couple bras here and here that have highlighted some scalloped edged laces on the front of the bra. I've gotten a lot of questions on Instagram about how I went about doing that, and so I thought I would just do a quick little mini tutorial demonstrating how you can sort of manipulate your pattern to allow you to have that scalloped lace edge highlighted on the front of the bra. So let's get started by looking at our pattern pieces. So the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to be using the Black Beauty bra pattern, but you could really use this with any pattern that you have. So I want to pick up right now my front frame pieces. So right now I have an outer cradle and a bridge. Let's look at the bridge first. So I want to be able to cut this so that there is a center line, a seam line up through the center front, and that way I can have my bottom frame pieces meeting at a point down here. So what I want to do is find the center point of this bridge. So you're going to measure the distance from seam line to seam line and then cut that in half. So this seam line to seam line is 6/8 of an inch. So I want to measure in 3/8 of an inch and put a line there. And then all I want to do is add a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance because I'm going to be sewing these two together. So here you can see that's what I've done. I've split this down the center and then I've added my 1/4 of an inch seam allowance on this side. So then we can sit this bridge piece away and we'd only be working with this from now on. The next thing that we want to do is to combine this whole thing into one piece. So all you have to do is look at your seam allowances both here and here. And overlap them so that that line is on top of itself. You should have about 1/2 of an inch overlap, because you have a 1/4 inch from this piece and a 1/4 inch from this piece. So you're going to line those two up. And then I like to just tape that in place. Oops. Like so. The next thing that we need to do is straighten out the bottom of this frame. And the reason that we want to straighten it out is because lace is going to be a straight edge along the bottom. There aren't any curves to lace. Now you will probably see some curve once you finish the bra because this can bend upwards like this when it's wearing, and so you'll get that curve around the bottom. But all I really want to do is find a straight line in there. Now because this is relatively a short distance from where your cup seam allowance is down to the band. So generally your underwire channeling is going to be 3/8 of an inch. So you have your 1/4 of an inch marked here, and that's where it attaches to the cup. But you also don't want to cut into that 3/8 of an inch below that, because that's the amount of distance you need at least to get your underwire channeling in. So in this case, I am going to not go any higher than where that seam allowance marker is now. So that's going to be my pivot point right there. And then I kind of don't want to make this any longer, so I'm going to connect that point along the bottom edge here and then just see where that ends out. And we're going to make a straight line across. So I'm just going to retrace that out with that straight line put in. And what you get is this. So you can see how that straight line is, this is going to be the new bottom of our pattern. So that's all we have to do with the frame piece. And when we are lining this up with our lace, we just want to make sure that the lowest points of the lace, so probably about here, are going to align with the edge of the pattern piece. So it's okay if you have little bits of stuff sticking over that line, but you don't really want to have anything that's like less than the bottom line of your pattern piece, if that makes sense. So I'd cut the lace out like that. Now, as you remember, I didn't really want to add any to my side here, but ideally I would have wanted to take away, but there was no way for me to get a straight line that connected to this point, and then my center front bridge would have been much too long, right? It would have been down here. So I want to actually add some length onto my back band piece. So how much length do you want to add? Well, you want your back band to be longer than your frame by the width of your elastic. So in this case, I'm using, this is a 1/2 inch of elastic here. So I want to make sure that my back band is 1/2 inch longer than my frame is. Now, if you were able to snip off your seam allowance on the side of the frame here, then you don't have to adjust your back band. The only reason I'm doing that is because I wasn't able to make this distance any smaller. So I'm gonna have to do it on my back band. So you can see I've drawn a line in here that's 1/2 inch longer. And the last thing you're gonna do to adjust your pattern is, especially with this one, now if you have a U back pattern, so that means a pattern where the strap sort of attaches in that fashion, you don't really need to do this very last step. But this particular pattern has a T-back strap attachment, which means these straps attach sort of perpendicular to the bra piece instead of scooping up. So if you have one that has a T-back attachment where the straps connect like this, you're gonna have to readjust this length on this far side. So we added a 1/2 inch along the entire bottom. So now we need to take just a 1/2 inch away from the upper piece because we want to make sure that this distance is the same as it always was. So what I would do is mark in a 1/2 inch from that side and then just draw a straight line grading up to nothing along the side seam. So I would just remove this portion of the pattern piece, and what you're left is this. So that's how you adjust the pattern to keep the lace. Now let's look at the construction of it. So here's a sample that I've made. A little hard to see. Here's a sample that I've made. So these aren't just real pattern pieces, but I just sewed this up so you can see how the back band does in fact extend 1/2 inch below where the lace ends. So what I would do for this, I would match up my top pieces and then just sew it in as is. And so you should have this little excess bit coming off the bottom. It looks like you've done it wrong, but that's exactly what you want to see. And then of course that's what it looks like from the inside. So the next step is to start applying your elastic. So just like we do for a normal bra, we're going to look at our bra from the right side, and we're going to line up our picot with the flat edge along the flat edge of our back band. Then we're going to sew with our zigzag stitch as close as we can to the scallops until we get to this point where the band is meeting the lace. And we're just going to leave this part free. When I turn it over on the back, you can see what it looks like here. So we do have this band that extends 1/2 inch below where the lace ends, and we've sewn our elastic just to that point. Then for the second pass of elastic, we're going to fold this into the inside like so, and we're going to do our second pass as close as we can to the straight edge. Except now we're going to continue sewing that along the straight edge onto the lace like so. And when you look at this from the right side, what you're going to see is you're going to see that lovely little picot edge sticking out behind the band. And then once you get to the lace, all you see is the lace edge. So here we can see the inside of this finished bra. And you can see where I've done that first pass of zigzag stitches and stopped when we got to the lace. And then my second pass of zigzag stitches does in fact continue on all the way along. Now remember we put in that seam at the center front. You're going to have your two frame pieces meet at sort of like an angle, like a house top. And what you want to do is just continue your elastic, and then you sort of curve it up and dead end it into the cup seam over here. So you have one piece of elastic that forms this side and one piece of elastic that forms on this side. And they cross at the center front in that lovely Gothic arch. Now let's say, for example, that you didn't want to do a cross of elastic like this. You just wanted one continuous piece that goes all the way across. So then you would do something like this. So you would, this is again from the front side or the right side of the bra. You would sew your picot edge up to that elastic. Then you would leave this bit open. You'd sort of like walk it along to figure out how much you needed, and then pick up sewing again once you got to the other band side. So like I said, this is just a sample for demonstration purposes, but pretend this is the frame of your bra here in lace, right? You'd have your two little places where your cups are going to set in, and these are your two back bands. So you would just leave this bit open, and then once you got it to the other side, you would, just like before, sort of continue going along the straight edge, and then when you get to the lace, just do a single pass of sewing along the elastic, along the lace, and then you can pick up again on your picot edge over here, and you'll have that same effect where you have picot on either side, and then the pretty scallop detail of the lace extending beyond the bottom of the bra. That concludes today's little mini tutorial. I hope you found this information helpful and are excited about different ways that you can start pattern manipulating maybe patterns you already have to get a completely different look. I'll see you next time. Take care.